In the heart of World War II, where nations burned and men were forged in fire, one mechanic dared to defy an empire. They called him mad, reckless, even suicidal. But his mind saw what others couldn't. While generals planned battles and scientists built bombs, he built an engine the world said was impossible. And when his creation roared to life, it didn't just change machines, it changed history. The year was 1941. Europe trembled under the weight of Nazi domination. Cities lay in ruins and factories across Germany worked day and night to feed the war machine. Inside one of those factories, hidden behind rows of engines and the stench of burning oil, worked a man named Karl Metzger. He wasn't an officer or a scientist with medals on his chest. He was a mechanic, one of thousands, tasked with repairing damaged aircraft engines brought back from the front. But there was something different about him. While others worked with obedience, Karl worked with obsession. He wasn't interested in fixing what was broken. He wanted to reinvent what was possible. Since childhood, Karl had been fascinated by the magic of motion, how machines could breathe, move, and come alive with just fuel and fire. He would spend hours as a boy dismantling his father's farm equipment, not out of mischief, but curiosity. He wanted to understand every sound, every spark, every vibration. To his father, it was madness. To Karl, it was destiny. When war came, that same boy grew into a man surrounded by engines of destruction. And yet, even amid the chaos, he saw something else. Potential. Working late one night, Karl was repairing a Messerschmitt Bf 109 engine that had overheated during combat. The design was efficient but flawed. It pushed the limits of speed but struggled with high-altitude performance. As he examined the twisted pipes and scorched metal, an idea struck him. What if an engine didn't rely on propellers at all? What if, instead of pulling air with blades, it pushed itself forward using the force of its own fire? It sounded insane. The concept of jet propulsion was still experimental, dismissed by many as fantasy. But to Karl, it felt like the next logical step in evolution. He began sketching on scrap paper, using bits of charcoal and grease. The first design was crude, a tubular structure that compressed air, mixed it with fuel, and ignited it in a controlled explosion that expelled thrust through the rear. It was dangerous, unstable, and revolutionary. Karl knew if he presented it to his superiors, they would laugh, or worse, report him for wasting resources. The Nazi military command didn't tolerate creative independence. Orders were to be followed, not questioned. But Karl wasn't a man who followed rules. He was driven by something deeper than fear, an unshakable belief that he could change the future. Every night after his shift, he stayed behind in the workshop. The building was cold, dimly lit, and smelled of oil and iron. Outside, the distant echo of bombers filled the air, but inside, Karl worked in silence, building his dream from discarded parts. He scavenged compressor blades, turbine housings, and bits of steel tubing from damaged planes. Piece by piece, he constructed a small prototype, his vision of an engine that could run without propellers. He named it Der Atem des Teufels, the Devil's Breath. By early 1942, Karl was ready for his first test. He wheeled the crude engine outside, set it on a metal frame, and attached a simple fuel line. His hands trembled as he checked every connection. One mistake could mean death. He turned a valve, struck a spark, and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thunderous roar split the night. Flames shot from the rear, the ground trembled, and metal screamed under pressure. The engine came alive, not as a dream, but as a living, breathing beast of fire. It lasted only 12 seconds before exploding, sending shrapnel flying through the air. Karl was thrown to the ground, his clothes burning, his arms seared by the blast. When the smoke cleared, others came running, expecting to find him dead. But Karl was alive, bloodied, coughing, laughing through the pain. "It works!" he shouted. "It actually works!" Those words would echo through history, even if his name didn't. The explosion drew the attention of the Luftwaffe's engineering division. Major Klaus Reinhardt, a strict officer known for his intolerance of disobedience, arrived the next day. He found Karl sitting beside the wreckage, sketching new notes with a bandaged hand. "Who authorized this?" Reinhardt barked. Carl looked up, his eyes calm and defiant. "No one," he said. "But I've built what you're all looking for." That single sentence nearly got him executed. Reinhardt had him arrested for unauthorized experimentation. But fate had other plans. A senior Junkers engineer named Dr. Otto von Kruger, who had been secretly experimenting with jet propulsion, heard about the mad mechanic who had made an engine explode, not in failure, but in proof of concept. Intrigued, he demanded to see Carl's notes. When he did, he was stunned. The design wasn't academic or mathematical, but instinctive. And yet, it addressed many of the same issues his own scientists were struggling with. Von Kruger arranged for Carl's release and offered him a chance to rebuild the engine, this time under official supervision. Carl agreed, but only under one condition. He wanted complete creative control over the design. The request was dangerous, even absurd, but von Kruger respected genius when he saw it. Together, they began building what would become the foundation of the world's first operational jet engine. Inside a restricted facility, Carl worked alongside Germany's top scientists, though he often clashed with them. They relied on equations. He relied on instinct. They called him reckless, unpredictable, and yet his methods worked. He reshaped turbine blades by hand, tested airflow using smoke from cigarettes, and listened to the rhythm of the engine like a musician tuning a violin. "Engines talk," he once said. "You just have to know how to listen." By the end of 1943, after countless failures and near disasters, the new prototype was ready. When they fired it up, the roar was different this time. Not chaotic, but controlled. The engine screamed for over 3 minutes, steady and powerful. The engineers stood frozen, watching as the exhaust flame painted the night sky. It was a moment that marked the beginning of the jet age. And at its heart stood a man who wasn't supposed to be there, a mechanic who had dared to dream. But the celebration didn't last long. When Nazi officials learned of the success, they saw only military potential. Orders came swiftly. Carl's design was to be weaponized for use in a new fighter aircraft, the Messerschmitt Me 262. Carl objected. He had built his engine to push humanity forward, not to create faster machines of death. His defiance was met with threats. "You built it for the Reich," an officer sneered, "and the Reich decides how it's used." Carl's heart broke. He realized his creation, his dream, would soon rain destruction from the skies. That night, unable to sleep, he returned to the workshop. The engine sat gleaming in the dark, almost alive. He touched its surface gently, like a father bidding farewell to his child. Then he removed a single turbine blade, the one component only he knew how to shape perfectly. Without it, the engines would never reach full power. He wrapped it in cloth and hid it in his pocket. The next morning, the missing part was discovered. Panic spread through the project. Production halted, tests failed, and suspicion grew. Before anyone could accuse him directly, Carl vanished. Some said he fled toward the Swiss border. Others claimed he was captured and executed in secret. The truth was buried with the war. When Allied forces later examined German research, they found traces of Carl's work in Junkers' archives. His airflow design was unlike anything seen before, efficient, elegant, and decades ahead of its time. British jet pioneer Sir Frank Whittle, upon reviewing captured documents, was said to have remarked, "Whoever designed this understood the engine not as a machine, but as something alive." Yet Carl's name never appeared in any official record. History forgot him, as it often does with men who defy authority. But in 1978, a farmer in Bavaria discovered a small wooden box while clearing an old barn. Inside was a rusted turbine blade and a folded note, written in faded ink. It read, "I built it not for war, but for what comes after. Machines should serve life, not destroy it. One day people will fly faster, farther, freer. And maybe they'll remember that progress was born from madness." Signed, Karl Metzger. The letter became a legend among aviation historians, a whisper of the man who built the impossible engine. Today, every jet that slices through the sky carries a piece of his dream. The roar of their engines echoes the same defiance that once burned in that lonely workshop. The belief that no matter how dark the world becomes, there will always be those who dream of light. In the end, Karl Metzger's story is more than a tale of invention. It's a story of courage, not the kind found on battlefields, but in the quiet defiance of one man who refused to let fear silence his vision. They called him mad, but history has another word for men like him: revolutionary. And though his name was erased, his legacy burns every time a jet engine screams across the heavens, a living testament to the mechanic who defied orders and built the impossible. When Karl Metzger disappeared in 1944, the project he had created continued without him. The Junkers engineers, desperate to meet the Luftwaffe's demands, tried to recreate his turbine blade, but none could match its precision. They tested dozens of versions, each one either melted under heat or shattered under pressure. The Me-262, Germany's first jet fighter, eventually took to the skies, but its engines were notoriously unstable. Pilots called them glass engines, fragile and unpredictable. What they didn't know was that the missing perfection lay in a single piece of metal, shaped by a mechanic who refused to give his gift to war. As the Allies advanced into German territory, Karl's trail vanished completely. Some claimed to have seen him boarding a truck heading south toward the Austrian border. Others said he'd been shot by SS officers for desertion. But there was one rumor that persisted among the surviving factory workers, that Karl escaped with his prototype notes and sought refuge in a small mountain village. A few even whispered that he continued working on his design, hoping to one day build it again, free from the shadow of war. After Germany's surrender in 1945, Allied intelligence scoured the country for scientists and engineers. Operation Paperclip, as it was called, recruited many of the Third Reich's top minds. But Karl Metzger's name appeared on no lists, his existence reduced to fragments of rumor and legend. To the bureaucrats who combed through the ruins, he was just another missing man. To those who had seen his engine roar to life, he was something else. Proof that genius can exist even in the unlikeliest of souls. Years passed. The world moved forward, carried by the jet age that Karl had helped ignite. Commercial flights crossed oceans, and supersonic aircraft broke the sound barrier. Humanity had entered a new era of speed, one born not in the halls of universities or under banners of empire, but in the grease-stained hands of a mechanic who worked by candlelight. In 1978, the discovery of the turbine blade in that Bavarian farmhouse reignited the legend. Aviation experts analyzed the piece and confirmed its craftsmanship was extraordinary. The alloy composition, the curvature, and the balance were beyond the metallurgy of its time. Attached to it was that simple note in Karl's handwriting, his message to the future. It was both a confession and a warning. Machine should serve life, not destroy it. That line became famous among engineers, quoted in textbooks and documentaries, yet few ever learned who had written it. Karl Metzger remained a ghost, a nameless spirit behind 1,000 roaring engines, and maybe that's how he wanted it. He didn't seek fame or fortune or power. He sought only to create. In a world where obedience meant survival, he chose defiance. In an era built on destruction, he built hope. His legacy isn't measured in medals or records. It's measured in every jet that takes off, every roar that echoes through the sky, and every dreamer who refuses to stop imagining the impossible. The mad mechanic is gone, but his engine still runs.